Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at NorthCentral Tech College in Wausau. We're interviewing candidates in the 2014 election. We're interviewing Dana Duncan. He's from Port Edwards. He's a Democrat. He's running in the 76th Assembly District. Mr. Duncan, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
A programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Mr. Duncan, I want to start with a couple questions based on items on your website.
Sure.
You want to quote, "end using children as a political maneuver." I'm fascinated by that. What does that mean, sir?
Well, it means exactly what it is. All you need to do is look at the governor's comments on Common Core, and you realize that this is just a political grandstand. If you look at Common Core, it's just standards. I mean, they're trying to make it into something that's completely politicized. It's a power grab by the governor now to undercut the one state agency in Wisconsin that he hasn't been able to dominate, and that's DPI. So that's all it is. And having been involved in education and schools and been the president of the Port Edwards School Board.
Right, you're now president of the Port Edwards
Yes.
School Board. Excuse me, just to clarify.
Sure. You know, I see what's going on, and it's unfortunately a situation where we're putting kids in the middle.
Wow. Then a follow-up question to that is the whole issue of school vouchers and choice. The current state budget puts a 1,000 enrollment cap on outstate choice participants. What do you think should happen in the next state budget on the issue of choice, Mr. Duncan?
Well, when I came in as a member of the Port Edwards School Board, Wisconsin ranks second in the nation as far as education. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was taught an old adage by my grandfather: if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Why are we messing around creating a separate entity, which basically is not really an option, but an attempt to completely privatize education? And so no, vouchers were bad. Quite frankly, the whole concept started because people couldn't understand that by allowing even charter schools, you were setting up an opportunity for the vouchers to then go to the next level. My fall opponent has been a big advocate of these vouchers. They are not properly regulated. There is no accountability per se, and it's siphoning funds off of public education that's necessary. All because it fits within a certain ideology.
Would you continue it then for the two cities in North and Southwest Wisconsin, city of Milwaukee and Racine?
Well, Racine, I'm not sure about. Milwaukee, I think you have to, simply because Milwaukee has been an extremely rare situation. It's unique to the rest of the state of Wisconsin. It always has been. There are inherent problems in it. I would like to see it fit within the normal framework, but I know that had been tried for a number of years, and the formula hasn't been able to be done. You know, I don't know what the answer necessarily is, but at least in the short term, those vouchers are probably necessary. I know that Racine, in the time I've spent there, has some problems, but I don't know if they're to the level that Milwaukee is.
As the president of the Port Edwards School Board, let me ask you this: what's been the impact of Act 10 on your school district, sir?
Well, I'm sorry, but none. Not really. We were a board that was fairly well managed, well, enlightened. We decided we wanted to go and have the opportunity to negotiate or change insurance with our teaching staff. So we negotiated that. We gave them more money in exchange for the opportunity to compare things, or to compare two different policies and change the plan. Act 10 came in, gave us all these quote-unquote tools that the governor keeps talking about, but if you were prepared ahead of time, they did nothing. We ended up losing money, not gaining anything because we were prepared. Seems to me the districts who benefited were the ones that were not responsible and thought about things in the future. So,
If you're a member of the Assembly, would you try to restore those collective bargain rights that were a victim of Act 10?
yes. To be perfectly honest, if the governor would have ran on a platform of, I'm going to end collective bargaining rights, and let it be known, and that this was all above board, and the citizens of the state of Wisconsin would have elected him anyway, then I would have no room to talk. But this was all done cloak and dagger, in secret. He didn't mention it the week before it was announced at the state school board convention in Milwaukee. He implied it, and I figured out kind of what he might be up to. But no, I mean, so to that extent, that's what needs to be done because of the way it's been handled. It's not something that I believe Wisconsin has a tradition of.
Question on health care. As you know, Governor Walker and the leaders of the Senate and the Assembly told the federal government, we don't want your money to expand MA benefits. Your position on that no?
I, by profession, am a lawyer, and my practice is built on Social Security, disability, and workers' compensation law. I've had a client call who was on Badger Care, and when they rewrote the plan, kicked him off. And his local Department of Aging told him, you have a choice. You can give up your house, or you can get the heart medication you need to keep you alive. It is a crime that we're letting ideology dictate policy. The money that the federal government is going to give us was the tax dollars we as taxpayers on the federal level have been giving to Washington anyway. Wisconsin has long been a state that gives more in taxes than it gets back because we don't have the military bases that some of the other states, especially down south, have, and in the Midwest, or lower Midwest, like Kansas and such. It's about time we get some of that money back. The fact that the studies have shown that thousands of people in those states that have declined this money, there are people dying as a result of this. I think it's immoral that we are not taking this money and that it has to be done immediately. This would be one of my first priorities upon election, to make sure that that money is accepted and that we expand it and cover people. Just from a standpoint of, one, I have clients who, because they have been unable to get medical care, are applying for Social Security disability. Some of those who have actually been able to get on Badger Care because of the changes, and now they are allowed to get on if you're below the poverty level, and you no longer have to have a minor child. Those individuals who have been able to get on get proper care, and I've had several who have said, oh, I'm better now, I can go back to work. So how many of these other people that are not getting this care are not productive members of society and are ending up having to go on disability as a result of this? Not to mention, as you said, your hospital association is sponsoring this. They get stiffed on their bills because they have to provide care in the emergency room for many of these people. Those expenses get passed on to those who pay their bill or have medical insurance. So it raises all our rates. You look at the rates in Wisconsin versus the rates in Minnesota. Minnesota accepted the money, Wisconsin didn't. Minnesota's got a lot lower rates than we have in Wisconsin. There may be other factors involved, but I would say at the heart, that's a big factor in that discrepancy between the two rates.
Transportation funding, there's a projected $650 million shortfall in the next two-year budget of the State Department of Transportation. Do we delay these major highway projects, raise taxes, or what's your recommendation?
I'd have to look at everything, but I think we're going to have to look, everything's on the table, including potentially increasing the gas tax. If you look at the percentage of the gas tax where it was the last time it was raised versus now, I think that inflation allows that we should have considered raising the gas. We should consider raising the gas tax. If Wisconsin is going to grow and is going to have any kind of economic development in the future, transportation is the key component of that. If you don't have transportation, how are goods and services going to get from point A to point B? And when you live in a cold climate where frost eats roads, by not maintaining them and doing them properly, you end up costing jobs in the long run. So I would look at all kinds of different options. I think that there's things that could be done. I know that some of our licensing fees and such are some of the lowest in the country. Those need to be looked at. Other options as well. So I would say everything's on the table, but that needs to be resolved. And it's not like this is something that just all of a sudden popped up. This was known at the time of the last budget.
Your reaction to Judge Crabb's ruling and the Attorney General's appeal of that ruling on same-sex marriage, sir?
I've read Judge Crabb's decision. I practice on a regular basis in front of Judge Crabb doing federal Social Security appeals. I have a lot of respect for Judge Crabb. I thought her opinion was well reasoned and very articulate. Marriage is law in Wisconsin and across this country. It has a religious aspect, but if it has law, it has to comply with law, and that means equal protection under the law. So I think she had no choice. I think it was the appropriate ruling, and it's time that we resolve this issue and move forward. And as a person who has religious ideas and values, it has no bearing on religion, because when I was married, I had a religious service, but I had a legal license that was then signed and filed with the Register of Deeds in my home county, and that's the legal aspect.
Two candidates for Attorney General think first offense drunken driving should be a crime. Your position, sir?
It's never made any sense to me why it isn't. Years ago, when I started out, as most young lawyers, doing work through the public defender's office and handling criminal cases. Every other state is, I think Wisconsin's the only one that has a non-criminal first offense drunk driving. I guess I would not oppose it. I think it probably makes the most sense. I would like to see, at least on first offenses, a little more leeway if we're going to do that would allow judges to do or consider alternatives, ideas of treatment, because a lot of times first offense drivers are in a situation where they finally receive a wake-up call, and this may be the opportune time to then deal with what may be a serious problem. And if we take care of it on the first time, maybe we won't be having second, third, fourth events.
There are calls in Washington and Madison, as you know, to raise the minimum wage. Your position?
Yes.
Would you go to 10.10 or 15 as Seattle?
Well, I have a lot of respect for the Culver store now, because I read their policy and it really made a lot of sense to me. I think that the minimum wage should be 10.10 for those 18 and older, and for those under 18, you could set a minimum wage at, say, $8.25 to allow high school students to get that first job and to gain work experience. They also don't have the requirements many times that adults do of having to pay for an apartment or a home and groceries, et cetera. So that's where I would go on this and look at a two-tier system.
Frac sand mining is an issue in the Capitol. Some want to have a statewide standard for local rules and regs over those. Others say it should be done on a community-by-community basis. Your position?
Well, overall, that's one of the tenets of my campaign is that we need to maintain or give local control to the people who are on the local level. They're the ones who have the day-to-day contact with the citizenry. They know their roads, they know their bridges, they know what's going on. They have I go to the Wood County Towns Association meeting every month, even though the 72nd only includes a few of the townships anymore. But I look around that room and there's probably 150 years of experience as town chairman. Why are we trying to tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing with their roads? They have more knowledge of every minute detail of their roads, way more than anybody in Madison ever would. So just for the party of small government to then dictate to them what they will or won't do just doesn't make any sense to me.
Two final questions. One of them comes from another statement on your website. You talk about a middle class equality gap. Can you explain what you, as one member of the Assembly, could do to close that?
Well, I think we need to look at all kinds of the situations. I'm seeing a lot of, for example, we have a lot of times students in our schools who have access to internet and education beyond what's available in the schools. They're able to advance and to improve in their quality of their education beyond what a lot of other students are. I think what we need to do is we need to upgrade our educational process. I think we really need to, it's very difficult for our teachers to maintain the technology necessary to continually advance within the schools and teach everything that's going on. It ends up, I think, half the time the students are teaching the teachers about certain levels of technology. I think especially in the areas of education, we need to may need to look at having specialized IT type people within the schools who can help bridge that link. I think also with the availability of all the different materials online and such, virtual education is going to be something that's going to end up having to be done in the future, simply because it's going to be difficult for teachers to continually remain on the cutting edge of what each class involves. I think what you're going to have is, in the future, you're going to see teachers being facilitators. They're going to be involved in discussions. They're going to be providing the tests. They're going to be working with the students. The days of them standing necessarily in front of a classroom and lecturing for 35, 40 minutes may be gone. That will go a long way to bridging some of that gap and allowing access for everybody to have that kind of an education.
Finally, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent in the primary, Mr. Duncan?
Well, I've known my primary opponent for 20 years, and he's a very nice gentleman and such. I'm not going to make any other comment on any kind of negative comment by any means. I can just tell you what I feel I have as far as strengths. I've been a practicing attorney for 25 years. I've handled cases ranging from probate to criminal to workers' compensation. I know what a piece of legislation is. I can draft legislation myself. I don't have to take it off a website from some political organization, copy it, and provide it to the legislature, and try to pass it without having any idea what it actually says. So those are kinds of strengths. I've had a wide variety of experience in my life. We've had 18 exchange students living in our home during the time. I've raised 3 children through the public schools. I've been a church elder for most of the 25 years I've been married to my wife, and these are the kinds of things. 3 years ago, I also started my own practice, split off. So unlike a lot of politicians, I've actually started a business and actually created a job, because I've went from having 2 employees to 11 in 3 years, based on just knowing, certain things about how to put things together and figuring out what works and what doesn't. I think I'm innovative, and I think I have a set of skills that would be helpful to the 72nd. I also know that I'll give every ounce of energy I have to making sure that everybody, even those who feel that they're left behind, feel that they have a voice again in Madison.
Thank you. Dana Duncan of Port Edwards is a Democratic candidate in the 72nd Assembly District. The primary is August 12th. Mr. Duncan, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.